The ancient Hebrew language can teach us so much about words and their meanings. Today, we're going to learn secrets about the word blood and how it is connected to the door and also connected to Yeshua. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Teshuvah Bible Studies. My name is Van, and today we're going to be doing a special study about the word blood in Hebrew. It is connected to this week's Torah portion, bo, which means come in Hebrew, and it is based on the book of Exodus, chapter 10, verse 1, all the way to chapter 13, verse 16. And again, the name of the portion is Bo. And it is actually the Torah portion that talks about the celebration of Passover. So it does cover a lot of the final plagues that God uses to free the Israelites from Egypt. And in those plagues, as we know, the last plague, God told the Israelites to celebrate Passover. And through the blood of the lamb that was sacrificed, God passed over the households of all those who follow the command to and obey the command. And the death passed over those homes, and the firstborns of those households did not die. So, in this portion, I decided to take advantage of the fact that it is talking about the blood of the lamb and how the blood of the lamb is used as a sign for God to pass over and spare the households of those who obey. So I thought it was a good time to discuss the meaning of the word blood in Hebrew. It is fascinating. It's actually one of my favorite styles of Bible studies because it is connected to the ancient Hebrew. And I'm just fascinated at how much we can discover when studying the ancient Israelite in the ancient Hebrew, right? The original Hebrew that were actually pictographs or images. So each letter in the ancient pictographs had a name, had a symbol, is also associated to a number. And when we study these, each one of these letters, their meaning and how they are arranged and form different words, what happens is each word in Hebrew in the ancient language actually forms a sentence that explains and defines what the word means. So we're going to see a very interesting connection. I love this type of Bible study, and I don't want to rush through it. So what I decided to do is that I'm going to split this probably into 4 parts. Probably each part will be 10 minutes or less. I don't want to rush through it, but at the same time, I don't want to make a long Bible study because I know a lot of people prefer to watch these in parts. So each part will be less than 10 minutes, but I want to discuss what each one of the letters mean and how everything ties back together to the significance of Passover and what blood actually means in Hebrew. It's fascinating. It's really my favorite type of Bible study because honestly, I could speak for hours on each one of these letters. So I'm actually trying to, uh, make the Bible study make sense in a short amount of time and, in bite sizes that people can actually absorb. But the truth is, each one of these letters, I'm planning to teach the Hebrew language in the future. And each one of these letters will probably have its own lesson that will probably be about an hour long, if not more, to actually go deeper into the significance and meaning of each one of these letters. So without further ado, on this Bible study, I want to discuss the significance of what the blood actually means, especially linked to the Passover feast. And we're going to do that through the pictographs or pictograms, which is the ancient Hebrew language, the original symbols that were used before we had the modern symbols like these. For example, these letters right here are the modern Hebrew. So we have a bet and an aleph here, which is the word bo. But these are the modern symbols. So we're going to use the ancient pictographs to make these connections and discuss the significance of the word blood in Hebrew. So this is actually the word blood in Hebrew. And actually, I'm sorry, this is the word Adam, which means humanity in Hebrew. We're going to discuss this as well. But the word blood is dam, right? So before I go here, let's look at the first verse that makes the connection between today's Bible study with the ancient, with the portion that we're studying today. Just give me 1 second. I have to connect the browser so we can look at the verses, and then I will go ahead and show that on the screen. So okay, here we go. So the verse that made me think of discussing the word blood today is the verse in Exodus chapter 12 verse 7, which says, and they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts on the upper doorposts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. So again, this is instructions from Adonai, the instructions from Hashem, our God, of what the Israelites were to do during this Passover feast. And this would be a sign for Adonai to pass over and not visit those homes, because that night death was going to visit each one of the households and kill the firstborn of each one of the households. But if death, the angel of death, saw this sign on the door, the angel of death would pass over and not visit those homes. So we see here that in the Hebrew, we see this verse in the Hebrew, and we see the word here, min chadam, which is from the blood in Hebrew. And we can see that this word is the word for blood. So we see dam. Hadam is the blood, the definite article in front of the word dam. So dam just means blood in Hebrew. So if we look at the definition that for this word, we see that the main definition is blood, and is also tied to wine, which later we see Yeshua making these same connections when he is actually celebrating Passover and they drink the wine. And he says the wine is a symbol of the blood, his blood that will be shed, and solidify the new covenant in his blood. So we see all these connections already with the word blood. So the reason I put the word Adam here is because, again, we see this interesting connection. Again, we could only see this in the Hebrew. That's why I'm so fascinated, and I love these type of Bible studies, because we can see things in the Hebrew that honestly we cannot see in the translations. So the word Adam, when we look, we most of us know that during creation, right? When God created humanity, and the first man was named Adam, or Adam in Hebrew, and that word actually, his name actually has a meaning as well. So it's not just Adam, as in like a random name, like my name is Van, right? And it doesn't really mean anything. Adam actually means humanity in Hebrew. So the name of the first man was also the word that means humanity. And the reason I put these symbols here, this is the original pictographs that I was talking about. So the letters here in blue and in red is the modern Hebrew, and the pictographs that are equivalent to those letters, they do have meaning, as I was saying. So Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it is a silent letter. Like if you wanted, when we're studying each one of the letters, we're gonna say this letter makes the D sound or the D sound. This letter makes the sound or the M sound, right? So Mem is like the M, the English M, and the Dalet is the letter D in English, so it makes the D sound. the aleph actually makes no sound. So literally, when I'm teaching the Hebrew and I'm going to teach you about the aleph, I'm going to say that this letter makes no sound at all unless it has a vowel, which are these little dots underneath it. And then when it is accompanied by a vowel, it makes whatever sound the vowel makes. So in this case, is that A. This is an A vowel. So this aleph would make the sound A. That's why this is Adam. So it's the aleph, which has no sound with plus an A, the dalet, which is a D plus an A, which is the da, and the M sound with no vowel. So it's Adam. That's where we get the word Adam in Hebrew. But the aleph is the silent letter. It is the symbol of an ox. Again, the word aleph itself means ox in Hebrew, and it is the symbol of strength. It's also the number 1 is the first letter, so it is the number 1 in the Hebrew alphabet. So it signifies strength, it signifies leadership, it signifies first, and it's actually the letter that symbolizes God, right? So the word dam, as I have been saying here, means blood, as we saw. So the interesting thing about here is that during creation, right, first God created the physical part of a man, right? He created the body using the clay, using the adamah, which is the red clay, which again is also tied to the word red. So everything ties together in the Hebrew. It's fascinating. So he created man from adamah, and he created the body first, and then he blew his spirit into the man. So when God blew his spirit into the nostrils of a man, then the man became a nefesh, or a living being, a living soul, right? So it's interesting that first God created the physical part, the blood, or the material part, the body, the blood. And then when we add the spirit of Elohim, the spirit of God, into the body, then we get mankind. So even the word mankind, we can see here that it is made up of the word for blood, which is dam. And then when we add God into that blood, or into the physical part, the spiritual part of man, then we get humanity. So again, right now we see this fascinating connection between the words and what they mean, and how they form and show us reality. I truly believe that when God was creating the universe, he was creating everything in Genesis, that he was using literally the Hebrew language to create all things. And we see these connections when we study the ancient Hebrew. So the word for blood was basically symbolizing the man's physical part. And when we add the spirit of Adonai, the spirit of Elohim, we get humanity. Another thing here is that humanity without God. So if you remove God from humanity, then you get blood, right? So that's another symbol, another way that we can see things, right? Humanity with God in front of it, we have humanity. But without God in front of it, we just have blood. So again, it's very fascinating, right? Humanity without God is just basically bloodshed or death, or, it just basically means ruin, right? So it's very fascinating. But when I wanted to talk about the blood, right? Blood is a very interesting substance. There's something very significant about blood that scriptures kind of reveal to us in a interesting way. And I've always been fascinated about what is so important about blood. Why is scriptures so fascinated by blood through all the sacrifices that have to be made? Why sacrifice animals? Why sacrifice innocent animals? What is there in blood that is so important? And we see verses that show us a little bit of the significance and the importance of blood. So Leviticus chapter 17, verse 11, we see a very interesting clue about the importance of blood. And the verse says the following: "For the life of the flesh is in the blood. The life of the flesh is in the blood. And I have given it to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that makes atonement for the soul. So again, blood has this I don't know how you call it, this attribute, right? It has this attribute that um, offers us a way to cleanse our souls. The blood has an attribute that cleanses sin, that covers sin. And that's one of the first clues that I have about blood. There's something interesting about blood that um, defines what why it is connected to the spiritual realm. There's some connection with the blood in the spiritual realm. So blood actually defines our lives, right? It defines the life of the being with the blood, which is fascinating to me because again, I think about even during conception, right? A lot of people think that life begins at conception, which I would agree that that is so because during conception, a new being is being formed because it's connecting the DNA from the mother and the father, and it creates a new being. But what about all those miscarriages, right? What about if it's an early miscarriage, is a natural miscarriage? I've always thought about that, right? Does that mean that God is permitting or allowing or even condoning some type of abortion, like a premature killing of beings? And I started thinking about that, and maybe the blood is the key answer to that because blood only starts forming within the body on the eighth day. The eighth day is when blood starts being created within the embryo. So maybe those premature you know natural abortions are not killing innocent beings yet because maybe I'm not sure if, again, like, this is just speculation, something that I thought about, and I find it fascinating because only on the eighth day you start having blood on the embryo, right? Otherwise it wouldn't make sense to me. Why would God allow so many innocent beings dying, right? And again, it goes against abortion. I'm against abortion, I'm pro-life. So but then I started thinking, what about all the natural abortion or the natural when the women lose the child very early on? What happens to those babies and those souls, right? I always thought about that. But again, just like, and I'm going to be a little blunt here, I'm going to speak a little frank. Like, if a man masturbates or whatever, like a woman, and has their cycle monthly, right? Those the semen and the egg, they're not living beings yet, right? Just it's just the genetic material, and they're not living yet. So I think it's the same thing even when they are combined together. That I think is at the point when the blood starts being created within the body. Again, the scripture says that the life of the being is in the blood, right? So until the creature has blood, it has no life according to the scriptures. And again, I'm speculating here and I'm going a little bit off topic, but again, I'm just fascinating about what blood actually means in the spiritual realm. There's some characteristics, there's some connection into the spiritual realm with the blood. Here's another clue about this fascinating attributes of blood. Right in Genesis chapter 4, verses 10, I believe, it says, this is talking about when Cain killed Abel, right? So God is now looking for Abel, and he says, where is Abel, your brother? He said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? And then he says, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. So it's fascinating, right? The voice of the blood of your brother cries out to me from the ground. So again, there's something about blood, right? There's something that connects it to the spiritual realm. And that's what we're kind of want to discover here. And that we're going to see if the ancient Hebrew help us decipher what is this connection between the blood and the spiritual realm. I find it fascinating. And I think that the Hebrew answers that question. And that's what we're trying to do here today. answer the question, what is the connection, right, between the blood and the spiritual realm? So we let's continue here with this deciphering what the word blood means by looking at the pictographs of the letters that create the word blood in Hebrew. So we have the mem, which is the symbol of water or liquid. So this symbol here, the mem symbol that we're looking here, that actually looks like waves. So if we look at the image here, so this looks like a wave, and that's the mem in the ancient pictograph. So that's this letter in the ancient pictograph. And it's just the symbol for waters or liquid, and we're gonna look deeper into this symbol in a little bit. And then we have the dalet, which is the other letter here, which is actually the first letter because we read it from the right to the left. So the dalet is the first letter, and the mem is the final letter here. And the dalet has this weird triangle image here in the ancient pictograph. But what this is like if you imagine a tent, right? This is like the flap that covers the tent opening. So it's basically like the door of a tent. So like again, in the ancient nomadic times, they lived in the dwelling places or the bait, right? The house, the dwelling places where they lived were tents mostly. And this is the door of a tent. So it's basically like a flap that closes the opening of a tent. So the dalet, the actual word dalet means door, and the symbol of the dalet is a door or a portal. There's also a symbol for a portal. So if we look at what blood actually means, it makes perfect sense, right? The blood is a liquid that is also a door, is a liquid that is also a door. And it makes perfect sense when you start thinking about the spiritual realm, right? Like even in the occult, even in religions that are not from Adonai, that are not connected to Elohim, and they're connected to spiritual beings, but evil beings, which are demons, right? They always require blood sacrifice to open a portal or a door for those entities to enter into our physical realm. So that's why when they're summoning demons or they're connecting to some kind of demonic force or another dimension, right? There's always blood sacrifice, and makes perfect sense. So what is actually blood in Hebrew? The word blood in Hebrew means a liquid that opens portals or open doorways into the spiritual realm. Very fascinating. And again, we only see this in Hebrew, and it makes perfect sense when you think about it, right? So it's a liquid that opens portals or doorways into the spiritual realm. That's why blood has these attributes and is so important for God and also for those who are trying to make a connection to the spiritual realm. So I'm going to end part 1 of the video right now. I'm going to make this a 4-part video. And the second part, I'm going to talk about each one of these letters individually, right? So on the second part, I'm going to talk about the mem and deeper connections that we can make through the letter mem. Then I'm going to talk about the dalet and what that means in the Hebrew. And then finally, I'm going to bring it all home and bring it all together and talk about how these connections are also connected to Yeshua. So we're going to see the connection between the blood, between the door, between Passover and Yeshua on the last part. So I'll see you guys in a little bit for part 2. If you're watching this live, and I'm not sure if there's a lot of people watching right now, I'm not going to break. I'm just going to return to the beginning here and do the introduction again for part 2. And then later, I'm going to cut these videos into shorter videos to stay on the channel for the archive or whatever we want to call it. So I see you guys in a little bit. Thank you for participating in this video. And don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe so that you can see part 2. Again, if you are watching this live, you're going to see it right now. But don't forget to like the video, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can be notified when I make part 2 and part 3 in part 4 of this video. Lehitraot, shalom, Shabbat shalom, and I'll see you guys in a little bit.